Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 376, and today we're doing Battle in a Ruthless Rumble. And so, as I say at the beginning of all of our best of 3 videos, we won't be touching on the individual deck lists themselves too much. If you're wanting to see these decks featured in their own gameplay video, you can scroll backwards in the channel just a little bit. And so, if you've been a daily follower, you should know what's coming up. We've been practicing this lineup over the course of the past 3 videos. This is the lineup that Krios used to take down second place at the NA Worlds Open Qualifier, and we're going to be playing Annie Jhin, we're going to have Samira Jinx, and we're going to have Shen Jarvan featured in this lineup today. And so, just to give you a little bit of background, as the Worlds Open came and went, the kind of consensus between everybody was that everyone's going to be playing some kind of Samira deck, everybody's going to be playing some kind of Tristana deck, and then the third deck is kind of up in the air, depending on the flavor of decks that you like to play. We came in with the idea of we were going to ban out whatever the Samira offering was. We were going to be good against Tristana, and then we were kind of trying to line ourselves up with being good against things like Echo Jinx and Aatrox Vayne. Just this nice little collection of decks that are pretty strong against Tristana. It didn't really quite work out for us because our lineup was abysmal against the likes of Karma Set, and we got taken down by Karma Set multiple times. But Krios approached this with a different idea in the sense that he wanted to leave up the Samira Fizz deck and then look to actually ban out Tristana. And so the lineup that we're bringing today is not particularly good against Tristana. We will ban her on site if she turns up, and we're actually going to be looking to play those Samira Fizz style games and then also have a strong lineup against Karma Set. And so a little bit of a different viewpoint there. Obviously successful for him. We're going to see if we can't replicate a bit of that success today. And so to bring the lineup up just real quick, first and foremost, we have Samira Jinx. Again, this is very similar to Discard Draven. If you're familiar with that deck from seasons past, the deck very strong against Samira Fizz, has this very nice go wide package to it to where you're able to flood the board very quickly and then boost all of your units with vision. It's a very deceptive deck in the sense that it feels like you should just be running out of cards very quickly. You're trying to discard a bunch of stuff to your cycling cards and play things like Reborn Grenadier that leave you down with cards. But between Samira generating cards and Jinx drawing extra cards and all of the cycle and Augmented Experimenter drawing cards, it really feels like you rarely run out of stuff to do. It's a very interesting deck and very powerful against both Samira Fizz and then also decks that are looking to use single target removal. And so if you're playing a deck that's using a bunch of Mystic Shots and High Notes and the like, dropping Mystic Shots onto a unit like Grave Physician isn't typically the best strategy. And so this deck does fold a little bit to AoEs, but it's quite good against those 2 decks that we just mentioned. Up next, we have Shen Jarvan. This is a nice board control / combo-y style deck, if you will. It has a lot of the elements of your classic Fiora Shen style control decks to where you have all of these barriers and all of these challengers. You can use the challengers to kind of pick and choose and destroy your opponent's best units while your units stay alive due to the barrier. And so that's the way we'll see a lot of these games come about, but you do have the ways to just deal astronomical amounts of damage, be that either with the Green Glade Caretaker getting large attack from the barriers, or more likely from the Sacred Protector doing this double attack ability. And so the common threads that you'll see with this deck are we're going to be whittling down the opposing board. Our units are surviving combats because we get to pick the blockers, and if it's a block where we'll die, we can use a barrier. That tends to put us in a spot to where we maybe have 4 or 5 units on board to our opponent's 3. And then if we have the Sacred Protector on board, we might be able to drop a barrier on one of those unblocked units, give it double attack, and then smash the opponent for a big blast of damage. But this is another deck that also functions extremely well if your opponent is playing cheap damage-based removal, a bunch of Mystic Shots, a bunch of High Notes. They don't kill a lot of our units. A lot of our units are just meaty on their own, but having all of these barriers and then having units like Kanaku Student that just kind of get barrier on their own, it helps neuter the removal spells and make them a little bit ineffective. Last but not least, we're playing Annie Jhin. This is another aggro deck, but I don't like to describe it as aggro like Pirates. It's just this different kind of flavor of aggro as to where you're trying to get a lot of early game chunk damage in just on the basis of all of your units being so aggressive. But then you switch into this kind of stuns plan as to where we're going to try and kind of pick a turn to where we can stun the opposing board. If not all of it, at least just a few of their key units, and then punch in that last bit of damage with our unblocked bros, and then maybe a little bit of burn to the face with things like Mana Soul Student or Jhin or Nox and Fervor. And so, that's the lineup. That's what we're going to be doing battle with today. Let's go ahead, jump on into the old gauntlet, see what we can do. It's 4 o'clock somewhere, them juicy barriers, make Draven great again. Let's jump on in. And so we're playing on the secondary account today. I have a partial run going on the main account. I might finish that run on the main account for tomorrow's video, given I'll be recording that on a weekday. And these Ruthless Rumbles, if you do go to the 5-win mark, can take 2-3 hours, and I won't probably have enough time on a workday to do it. But we have a nice 2-0 start on that other account with the exact same lineup, and so I think we can bring this one in today, see how the thing goes, get a little bit of Ruthless Rumble in tomorrow's video as well. And then from that point on, we'll be gearing up for the Variety set and Eternal coming up shortly afterwards. But a big control lineup coming from Pepe Draco here. This is going to be a pretty easy ban onto Nora. Nora's gameplay gives us a lot of frustration, a lot of problems. She's exceptionally good against both Annie, Jhin, and Samira, and so we're going to look to take that one out of the way, and we're hopefully going to be able to 2-0 the Karma set deck here. The kind of promising thing with this is a lot of our go wide kind of strategies are good against Heimerdinger Jace, and so Samira and Annie Jhin stay up. They'll be quite happy with that matchup. I suspect Samira is going to get banned, and then we're going to have to try and win with Shen against Heimerdinger, which is a little bit more challenging, but certainly doable. Oh, he bans out Shen. Cool. Appreciate it. It's like, I don't really want to be playing Shen against the deck that has Vengeances in it, and so I appreciate the leaving up of our high-powered deck there. And okay, so not the strongest of starts. I don't want to start with either this Flame Chompers or the Sump Dredger. We can be coming out and getting like this big high-powered start with the Reborn Grenadier. It's not like really exciting. We would rather be discarding this thing to a cycle card, and so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of everything. Look for our real 1-drops, our stronger turn 1 cheaper plays, and boy, did we not find them. Wow. That's certainly a start. We're going to be ready to pop off on turn 6 here, but we gotta make the best with the turn here before we get that far along. All right, I'm going to go ahead and Mystic Shot down this Forge Chief. There's not a ton of good targets for Mystic Shot coming out of the opposing deck, and so if we can just go ahead and get him out of the way, let this Forge Chief do its thing for a couple of turns, it's not that bad. But like, what are we realistically going to shoot down with the Forge Chief? They have things like the Pharaoh's Fancier, whatever. We're not going to hit any of the champions. We could hit a turret, which doesn't sound like a great idea. Just none of these cards are particularly strong and not things I want to be hitting with these removals. Alright, so a bit of a bummer here. I don't really like just running out Jinx. We would ideally, at worst, be playing her on turn 5 and then hitting with the Augmented Experimenter on turn 6, but this hand has just been such a nightmare and such a disaster, there's not really anything that we can do about it. And so we can't just take this turn and say, okay, I'm going to play Crimson Pigeon and then play Vision to get +1 attack, or to just pass and overbank all of that mana. Again, this hand has just been a absolute disaster in terms of the cards we picked up here. Can't run the Crimson Pigeon directly into Jace. That feels a little awful, but we did have at least a reasonable collection of units in hand for the discard here. I mean, that's not good. We should have just played the Pigeon last turn. This would turn out so much better now if we could potentially just kill the Jace in this combat, and we're just discarding the Pigeon anyways. We should have played it last turn, even knowing it was just going to get hooked and killed. Now we have to lose an even better unit in the Experimenter. Not a good turn. Like, I don't think we had much of a chance in this game anyways, given the makeup of how our hand played out, but it's not a real good excuse to just throw our unit away. Now we're having to deal with this flip Jace, and it does not feel good. Alright, I'm ready to just go ahead and give up on this one. Again, that was one of the absolute worst draws that we could manage to mulligan into, and so I still stand by that mulligan at the beginning of the game. I think we're really wanting to find a Forge Chief or a Crimson Pigeon, or even at worst, just find a Samira to be starting the game with, but mulliganing into Flame Chomper's Vision double 6-drop, not really how you want your day to be starting against Heimerdinger Jace, or against anything. But alright, see if we can't turn things around here against Karma Set. Again, a bit of a turd of a start. Happy enough to just take the full mulligan, look for one of those 1-drops, or if they don't turn up, at least maybe we can find a Samira or something. Not good. Not good, fam. This is how you lose with Samira Fizz. you just straight up don't draw anything. Painful. Alright, Forge Chief here to save the day a little bit. We can drop the Forge Chief. Ideally, we'll be able to get this Flame Chomper's Vision going as well. Make sure you discard the Flame Chompers first, so that it actually gets the bonus off of the Vision. There's the 1-drops. They turned up eventually, I guess. Sure. You're putting in the work, Flame Chompers. We appreciate the things you do. And a Vision. Not horrible. Not horrible. Get all of these nice bonus stats. Probably be running Jinx out now as well. It's like if we play her and then she soaks up an Aftershock or something, it's not terrible, and we do get to come out and spend all of this mana. And so, not a lot of scary plays coming out of this deck on turn 4. Turn 5 is when they get to start adding Set to the board and being a little bit more scary. But no Concussive Palm. That would have been the big play for opponent on this turn. And oh boy, we just get to smash. Nothing wrong with smashing, my friends. Okay, he picked up Aftershock off of the Clockling. I would expect opponent just has a very expensive hand here.
I'll make it my business to know the odds.
So Mixologist comes in. We can safely add Jinx now. We should pretty easily be able to get the Death Rockets next turn. We might run into a touch of trouble depending on what we draw, right? Ideally, we're going to be in this spot to where we add the Sump Dredger, discard the Vision, and then have 2 spells in hand. So if opponent tries to drop removals on Jinx, we can flip her on the board. Not the way that it turned out here, but I think we just have to switch to playing the Experimenter now. It's not a horrible one. We do lose out on 2 cards, but it's going to drop the Mixologist to 1 health. We can clean that up with the Death Rocket, and then that's not nice. And then we would have ideally been able to play our our Death Rocket with that mana we had banked up, but opponent's not being very friendly here. So let's go ahead and take down the Mixologist. There shouldn't be too much opponent can do after this. It's going to clear the unit out of the board. If he tags out his own unit, I don't really care. And then discarding this Vision will get us up to lethal.
Immerse yourself in the unknown. My experiment.
All right. Rip him good. GG. So nice. Game didn't really go according to plan, but took that one down quite easily nonetheless. Feels good. See if we can't do the same thing with Annie Jen. As a aggro aficionado, it really hurts getting these games into where we don't start with the 1-drops. So this hand looks, this hand looks much better. I'm gonna hang on to the Crimson Pigeon. Get rid of everything else. Imperial Demolitionist isn't really a 2-drop. It's more like a 4 or a 5. We'll play it on turn 2 if we have to, but we typically want to be using it to, say, activate a Pirouette, or we want to use it to, if opponent has a board we can't attack through, have this additional way to just deal damage directly to the face. You know, Mystic Shot that bird. Rip. It's not that bad. Add in the Tusk Speaker here. It's kind of an interesting spot. If you want to go for a Mana Soul student, you can look to maybe add Legion Saboteur so you have the activation ability, but that's not what we're doing here. The thing I'm kind of curious about with this board is if opponent is going to have the AoE spell, right? We're wanting to get the Saboteur and the Tusk Speaker on board and then drop the Demolitionist onto the Tusk Speaker. If that's the case with what happens, he's going to be able to get a pretty big clear with the AoE, but with Concussive Palm coming in, we know that we're safe. Get a nice 3 damage attack in for the round. Okay, so I would feel pretty good about him not having the AoE at this point, right? I think if he had the AoE, he would want to be blocking the Imperial Demolitionist and then cleaning up with the AoE. So he was 1 damage short at that point. So I don't think he has it there. Not to say that he can't have it now, especially after a predict, but that's just my take on the opponent's actions. All right, still looking reasonable though. Next turn we get to open with the Sunhawk. It's going to stun the Clockling, deal a point of damage to face with the Mana Soul, and then we're going to have some pretty decent looking attacks after that. Set comes down here as a big blocker. He's going to be able to take down the Mana Soul, but being limited to 1 spell this turn is kind of crappy for the opponent. All right, let's send in the squad. So what's gonna happen if we do this, right? He's gonna put the tail of the dragon in front of Mana Soul. I'm trying to think if we want to actually just take the trades here. I think that's okay. We're looking to drop a Nox and Fervor after this turn, though, right? We want to empty out our hand before we play the Augmented Experimenter next turn. And so we could potentially look to save a unit, or we could look to, say, kill off the Imperial Demolitionist to hit the tail of the dragon. But I think I'm pretty okay with just clearing out the board at this point. And then I'm going to send the Nox and Fervor to face. The next turn we can look to Augmented Experimenter away the Clockling. But this is a pretty nice time to be dropping the Nox and Fervor. It's not going to get counterspelled for 1 mana. You can't hit it with a Deny. You can't hit it with a burn spell directly onto the unit. So, nice little safety net there. He leads in with Mystic Shot. Interesting. You can deny this ability off of the Augmented Experimenter, but, I mean, if he denies this, I think we just outright win the game. So, I'm not too upset if that happens. Thinking on it hard. One of the things I learned yesterday in playing these games is I was worried that you couldn't play the Augmented Experimenter without a target, right? So it's a play, discard your hand, draw 3, deal 3 to an enemy. If the opponent doesn't have any units in play, you can still play the Augmented Experimenter for the discard your hand thing. I'm not entirely certain if you can play it and just pass, but it's a strong thing to be able to just drop him on board and not have that requirement attached to it. Nobody wants to be playing a nobody wants to be playing a 6 mana 3/3. All right, but we should be in pretty good shape here. Going to drop in the Pirouette, try and force him to react to it. It's going to deal 1 damage with the Mana Soul, and then assuming he has to spend some mana or something, we have the Demolitionist to try and get out of this. Okay.
War Mason, reporting for duty.
So he's got to have an answer to the Powder Grenade, and then with an answer to it, he has to also be able to stop the entirety of our attack. Unable to do so, GG. The W has been marked. All right, feels good. No goose eggs for us today. Taking down a victory. Whew. Feels good after that abysmal Runeterra Open. I didn't think we had it in us to win games anymore. But feels good. I am glad we didn't have to take Shen up against those decks. I didn't really want to play Shen against Heimerdinger Jace. I'm curious why opponent chose that ban. Maybe it's a little scary to have Shen up. Like if you're going to operate under the assumption that opponent wants to leave up Nora to try and take Shen into, I could see that being a thing since you can control their board pretty easily. But that's still not a deck I ever really want to be playing, and so doesn't work from my perspective. All right, round 2, up against the same guy. Do you think he's going to take the same strategy here to ban out our Shen Jarvan? It's almost tempting to pivot. Oh, he goes for the same thing. All right, let's see what we can do. I was curious if he said that strategy did not work out well. let me pivot and change. But I guess he knows to a degree that we're just gonna our main target's going to be this Karma set deck, and so. Just the pick and ban there wasn't really the failure of the strategy. All right, moving forward though, we found a 1-drop. Go us, good job. I know it's tough to do, but we did it. And a very reasonable discardy start here. And so we'll play the Urchin, discard the Flame Chompers. Next turn we can play the Physician and discard the Reborn Grenadier. Not a bad start at all. All right, Great Physician, do your thing. Grenadier comes in. We draw Samira. Nice, nice. Good little collection of aggro friends coming down. It's gotta feel bad, right? Dropping Mystic Shots on Great Physicians. I don't know, man. I don't play those control decks. Nobody wants to do that kind of thing, but I can't imagine it feels good. All right, 3/3 coming in. We're still in a decent spot to deal with him next turn, using the Flare and running a Reborn Grenadier into it. No complaints from me. We want to go for the Sump Dredger. It's kind of an interesting spot. We can use the Grave Physician, and then if we pick up another cheap unit, we can get 2 units on the board this turn. So if we draw Zonite Urchin, Forge Chief, Crimson Pigeon, Flame Chompers, then we'll get to play the unit. But if we pick up something more expensive, we have the worst unit on board. I think I'm still okay with just going for it. Picked up an expensive one. Is what it is, I guess. Rip Samira. You would have been a good draw. I would have appreciated that one if you wanted to turn up there. All right. Well, that Augmented Experimenter was not totally ideal. I don't really want to be pivoting to Jinx at this point. Don't want to discard Jinx. We need to get her on board. What's the mana spend look like here? If she can safely make it to the next turn, that's not that bad though. All right, I don't think I'm really intent on this. Let's do this. Let's play the Urchin and just discard the Experimenter. It's a powerful card. Don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like it adds enough to this board. We're still in this spot to where, to where we can kind of like flood the board and still get a big damage attack in. So. I wanted to kind of keep that in mind. We weren't going to use that Experimenter for a long time. Now it's another kind of interesting spot. Again, I don't want to discard Jinx. I do want to get something on board. Maybe we can just add the first one. Knowing that we kind of have the backup copy hanging out. I want to get more dudes on board. At least it's tough. If we come in and just discard the Sump Dredger, we can be guaranteed to get the flip on Jinx this turn. We just might run into issues with the amount of mana that we have, right? If we have to spend all 5 mana on the turn, then we're not going to be able to play a Death Rocket this round. Opponent's also being a little scary in the sense that they're keeping that 6 mana lined up. Vengeance comes in. Still a big high-powered turn for us, even without the Death Rocket being castable. But this is what I was worried about when we come in and start discarding cards. Like, we got rid of the Jinx and we got rid of the Experimenter. Now we just don't have any cards in hand, and we have to naturally pick up our strength. We have big attacks here. I think we're coming in for 11, but need a good top deck from this point. I think I feel okay with opponent playing Formula. It's it doesn't you know, add anything to the board. Is he gonna have a second Reggie at least? Undergrowth onto a unit it doesn't kill. Interesting. Interesting, I tell you. Uh-oh. Are we willing to rummage here? I think we have to. It just, we gotta find something. We'll play the Vision, but he's clearly going to be playing a spell here. I want to make sure that it doesn't just end our day. I think we're stuck dropping it. Get that Reggie off of the board, the 3 damage in, and then we just have to draw an Experimenter or Jinx. Okay. The professional, the professional Samira Jinx players would be drawing that Experimenter right about now, and so we need to pick up some of those skills. It's pretty tough having hands like that. We definitely could have gone a lot wider in what we did. We very aggressively discarded our hand after not baiting out any big removal spells from the opponent. And so it's definitely tough in that sense. But it's like when you're in these spots to where you don't really have like discardable cards, right? You're not discarding your value-based cards, you're not discarding jury rigs or whatnot, and just actually cycling out real cards. It can be a little bit tough in there. I ultimately worry that like discarding out the Experimenter is the pain point there, and maybe that was the one that we should have held on to. But if you want to flip the Jinx, you're going to have to be discarding it at some point anyways, and so it's tough. All right, next battles are upon us, though. Very good start here against Karma Set. Very aggressive in the early game. Lots of units to flood the board with. Our friend Samira turned up. No complaints. Gonna drop her. She's probably gonna die here, but it's just so good being able to continue flooding the board and then just discarding the flare that I don't think she's a unit with like really high expectations in this match, and so feels like a win to me. Now it is kind of interesting if opponent wants to play a 3/3 here. Do we want to say use the Crimson Pigeon and try and line it up with the flare to get that unit off of the board? It doesn't sound terrible. So we can say Grave Physician, discard Zonite Urchin. See if opponent adds in the 3/3. And then we can still play the Pigeon, deal the minus damage to the Physician, get a decent trade to get it off board. Now we don't have to with the Concussive Palm. Grave Physician, today is your day. You are going to be putting in the work. Well combated, my friend. That's what you want to hear at the end of the day, right? Give him a pat on the back. You say, well combated. You did good.
The order rewards its faithful.
Alright, it's an interesting spot with Jinx, but we have too much card draw here. Let's just continue to flood the board. And the Grave Physician turns up, so we'll be ready with our discard next turn as well. I think I'm on board with that. We do have a really strong open attack, though. Like, if we want to give up on the Reborn Grenadier, we get to attack with everybody. He's probably just trading for a Forge Chief. Feels a little spewy. Oh, and a Vision turns up. I'm just gonna cast it. Okay, okay. This should be challenging. This should be challenging. All right, we'll send in the squad.
You cannot escape.
So we got the AoE. High note. Okay. Still gonna drop it. It's a 3 damage vision that we're gonna be discarding anyways. So I think it's safe to go ahead and punch in that damage at this point. Getting some of that damage lingering around, and now we're to the point to where 2 Death Rockets get a kill. That 6 space is pretty interesting. Is he gonna try and pop us with Set? Let's see what happens. Not popping now. I did the mathematics on that one. So Jinx may die here, but this is very different from that previous game to where we can get a lot of refill here with the Augmented Experimenter. Alright, no Aftershocks. Gotta feel good now. Vision turning up. Yum, yum, they say. Even if this gets denied, it still feels pretty okay. That's a very heavy mana spend for the turn. Looks like he might be trying to burn down Jinx or something. Exbliterator and deny. Okay, so we win. Cool. Cool, cool.
But my experiments.
Sorry, Acorn. Alright. Game 3 coming up. A little bit of Annie Jhin against the Karma set. I'm on board. Oof, I'm excited with this Eternal season coming up. I mentioned in our Annie Jhin video that I always felt like whenever we played against it and lost, our opponent was just getting lucky, right? And you have to get to a point to where you eventually say, maybe it's not luck, right? Maybe it's not just luck coming at us and shutting us down in all of these games. And I kind of got the real feeling that was what was happening with Annie Jhin, and we needed to just give it a little bit more respect. And it's just like it has so much opportunity in Eternal as to where you get access to the things like Legion Rearguard, but then more importantly, you have access to Jhin, and Jhin getting to
No one's the wiser.
Jhin getting to pick from a larger and larger and larger and larger card pool as the game goes on.
Let's go make some friends, Tibbers.
All right, but reasonable combat here. We lost our Saboteur, kept our Annie. It does 1 less point of damage this way, but we get to keep the longer value unit with Annie, if you will. It's tough for our opponent in that sequencing, though. They don't know that they need to kind of wait until the middle of combat to try and take the unit down. Otherwise, if you're going to be shooting down a Legion Saboteur in the middle of combat, then you're just taking extra damage. So it's a bit of a loss. Alright, that's awkward. Well, I don't really want to just be open attacking here. This is tough. It's like if we open attack and he has a spell, we're just going to get brutalized. So I'm going to drop in the bird. I'm going to drop in the demolitionist. We'll get the plunder on the pirouette. And then if he comes in and plays the, I don't know, the Ionia healer, whatever that 3/4 is called, we still get a pretty reasonable attack in for the round. This also plays around Caustic Rift a little bit better. This Aftershocks the bird. Okay. Well, this is definitely worse for Caustic Rift. Got out of the turn, but didn't really add any units to the board. I don't want to kill a unit just to get the demolitionist down. Okay. And you can do something to witness. Now we'll start to drop these demolitionists in. Just sucks to play the demolition. You can play it. You don't have to do that ability thing, but it sucks to just play it and then have it
For the Empire.
not get the full amount of value out of it. Life's all about the value, you know.
Make the Empire proud.
Curious, it feels like if he's playing high notes in that spot that he's probably got a lot of single target removal in his hand. Wouldn't be surprised to see him Mystic Shot or High Note or something on the Witness here soon. But definitely a little suspicious of what that hand contains. But nice burn package here. We're gonna drop in the demolitionist. We'll see where Pirouette gets us. We have access to Nox and Fervor if we're wanting to burn away the blocker. So gonna be getting close. We've only got 9 damage on this board though. Right, assume he has no more cards. We attack, he blocks the Witness with the Augmented Clockling. We get to deal 1, 2, 3, 4 with the Demolitionist, 6 with the Corsair, and then 9 when we include Nox and Fervor.
Captain's orders. Pull it to the face.
We gotta be a little bit slower here. I'm kind of scared to drop it off. See if maybe he plays a removal onto one of our living units. Maybe we'll take it from that point, but I don't feel like the Fervor is really worth it here. Alright, well it's time to do some cheek clinching, boys. We're getting close, but he's gonna get the opportunities to drop some big boys on board, get some heals down apparently. Close. Can still potentially boom him with this board, right? If we attack, he only has blocks. We get to deal 1 damage from the Corsair, 2 damage from a Demolitionist, and then the 3 damage off of the Nox and Fervor. I think we're stuck at this point. It sucks, right? If he's got any burn spell, then we just kind of lose the game. But did it count that wrong? Oh no, I was counting for 2 damage. I didn't count on the Corsair dealing so little damage. Whoops. Maybe we can draw one of those decimates, right? Maybe we can get a decimate. That's pretty tough though. We can still try and pull this one out, but it's our chances of winning are dwindling. This is a kill for the turn if we can get out of this. Got the Mana Soul Student plus the Nox and Fervor getting us up to 4 damage. Can't outrun that. This might have been a mistake to not play the Mana Soul first. Right, he gets to play the Mixologist at burst speed. And so it's like now we really need to... Like, we lose out on the target for the turn. If we just played the Mana Soul first, then we could have potentially got something out of it.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the Mystic Shot. Yeah. I think this one's not going to go our way. Not a lot we can draw here. Really need to pick up like an Augmented Experimenter.
And then there's me.
We're still short here, even with a Nox and Fervor. All right, GG. That's tough. I think that one was serviceable. I know we wouldn't have been able to win it in that situation, but that's not the point. I think that game we should have played the Mana Soul student first, and then when he went to tag out his unit, we could have played the Nox and Fervor. It's just a little bit safer way to do it. He has that, if we go the way that we did, he has the guaranteed way to just get the lethal, which isn't super ideal, but then I feel like the big pain point in that match was our matchup against Heimerdinger Jace. I think we probably should have won that game where we had the double Jinx and Augmented Experimenter game. But nonetheless, it gives you a good idea in terms of the power of the lineup, right? We played against Karma Set. The wins against it were pretty easy. We went 3-1 against it, and that last game was a bit questionable in terms of some of the angles that we took. So it's quite strong there. Heimerdinger Jace is going to be a weaker matchup, but it's certainly winnable as well. It's just one of the nice things about playing aggro decks I don't feel like people really give enough credit to is like that game to where we, in the first match, to where we drew the 2 copies of the Augmented Experimenter and just had that terrible draw. Like, draws like that come up much more frequently the more expensive cards that you put in your deck, and it's just the bad draws that you get from aggro decks aren't nearly as much of losers as the bad draws as you get against with control decks. But all right, we're playing this guy again, match number 3. I'll take a little bit of a break after this match just to make sure that we can get some more different decks in here. I think if we end up losing, you can play to 2 losses, right? I don't entirely remember, but. Same deal here. There's an argument to hang on to things like Grey Physician Jury Rig, but this is not a very powerful start. Like, I would just much rather have a 1-drop. I mean, it could be considered okay given that we're on the even attacks and there's not a ton of ones. Let's just take the small mulligan here. The thing that I'm thinking of with this is if opponent has one of these starts to where they play a Forge Chief on turn 1, then I'm not really opposed to just throwing away Jury Rig. It's still a fairly strong play for the first turn of the game, if you get to take that unit down. But he didn't end up having it. We didn't pick up any ones. It's still okay. Let's just play this Samira a little bit slower as well. Oh, the Flame Chompers. All right, Zonite Urchin come in. Who's ready for this? Who's ready to rummage the double Flame Chompers onto the board? It's a play. It's a thing, you know. All right, let's add Samira. I don't suspect she's going to live too frequently, but seems better than dropping the double Flame Chompers. All right, let's see what it turns up. Look out, my dude. Aggro 0 attackers coming in. Need a vision. Need a vision for these guys. But reasonable enough stuff. We might find ourselves able to drop the Jinx into the Augmented Experimenter. That's what it's looking to do. It sucks to give up on 2 draws, right? You look at this hand right now, and you can start to say, like, okay, well, we can go into next turn. We can play Jinx, Flare, Mystic Shot, and then 2 turns from now play the Augmented Experimenter. But you're going to draw 2 cards along the way, and so it's a bit of a bummer in that sense. But we'll try and play this one to a little bit of a longer outcome than we did in those previous games. He brings in the Challenger. We'll drop the bird this time. We learned our lesson from days past.
ready to be broken. Like buildings. Or people.
Alright, let's see if Jinx starts to survive this stuff. She does not. Tried. You tried. Alright, well I'm definitely playing Augmented Experimenter onto Jace next turn, so let's go ahead and play the Mystic Shot. And then we'll drop the Experimenter in.
The answer is here somewhere.
Nice draw in the Grenadier, though. It's to come on board for free.
Immerse yourself in the unknown.
Alright, a fresh collection of friends. Let's get everybody into battle here.
So many questions.
Not everybody, right? Just just our units with positive attack. Those will be the ones that we're sending into battle.
The mind is nothing without me.
What's Pharaoh's at? 4 damage to the enemy. Okay. It's not ultra scary at this moment.
Tomorrow awaits.
Clean out a little bit of space on the board. Looking to add in Samira at this point. I think we got to continue to play this value game for a little bit. He paused. We haven't seen Quietus out of this deck up to this point. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it had it, but we haven't seen it. I'm going to go ahead and drop the Flare. As it stands, if we pick up the extra card, that would be kind of nice. Samira does have a pretty big target on her head, but we can look to discard out our hand this turn and get the flipped Jinx on board even if we still play the Flare.
You wanted to see me? Yes. I want to see what you're doing.
So we'll do 1 to the old enemy Nexus. Opponent only has 1 mana now, so we don't have to worry about as much stuff. We can add in Jinx. Now we'll play the Sump Dredger. Discard the Physician. Jinx gets the flip. We get the card in hand. Hopefully that'll get us close enough. Opponent does have this very, very intimidating board with Albus and the Jace on it, but we're hopefully overcoming. Samira's about ready to flip as well. She doesn't flip too often in this deck, but really chained out the spells for the turn. Ooh. Oh man, it's like what a roller coaster. You see the get excited come into hand when your opponent's at such a low health total, and you're like, all right, okay, we can work with this, and then it immediately just gets hit with Piercing Darkness. But at least the Piercing Darkness is coming in before he's able to drop these kills. So we'll take the Samira flip. I'm looking to still add this Jinx in, and then potentially play a Death Rocket this turn, and so... Ugh. That's brutal. That is brutal. There's no way to make all of this work. I think we're stuck. Well... Alright, well, I think let's just pass. We don't have to block Albus Pharos. He's not like getting a guaranteed kill on us, but I'm always like super hesitant to fall to 3 against an active Jace. It turns all of the all of the Jaces into their deck into shock blasts, and so I feel like you're stuck blocking here. There's not anything we can do about that. And so the real question comes down to this next turn. And do we want to... I think, I mean, we just have to add Jinx and draw all the cards.
Her people.
What do we got? Urchin and Experimenter. So where do we want to send this damage? I'm leaning towards just giving something Challenger. And so that we can potentially, say, attack down this Albus Pharos. I don't really want to put it on Jinx. She has such a big target on her head anyways. I'm going to put it onto the Sump Dredger. Now we'll go after the Jace. We could potentially look to clean up Jace with the Death Rocket. Yeah, that was a poor target, wasn't it? Feels a little better when you know you're not getting the Death Rocket, but that would have been an interesting spot to just be going for stuff. Alright, though. Big ol' hand now. Opponent's tapped out.
Come on, people. Let's make tomorrow today.
I definitely want to be Mystic Shotting the unit here. We get all of our units will deal 3 damage, so the Mystic Shot is a higher impact spell. And then we have 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we should be lethal with this now. Alright. GG. I'm glad we didn't go for those super value Death Rocket plays, right? Putting the 3 damage onto Albus Pharos and then trying to clean out Pharos and Jace with a Death Rocket. Oof. Alright. Annie Jhin time. So what do we got? That's not a start. Look at all these 4-cost dudes in our hand. No, thank you. Pirouette does have a lot of opportunities to be good in this match, given that it can kill off like Albus Pharos. It's just giving you that opportunity to, or not Albus Pharos, Reggie. It's like being able to stun a unit and kill a 1-health unit, or stun a unit and kill a turret or something. It's all very strong. But here we have a couple of options. One of the things you'll quickly find playing aggro decks is you have this option to play 2 1-drops or a single 2-drop on the second turn. A lot of times you want to prefer to go for the 2-cost card in terms of mana efficiency, right? So next turn, if we play our 2 1-drops this turn, then next turn we have 2 2-drops in our hand, we can only play one of the 2s. But you also do less damage that way, right? So here we get to add in the Legion Saboteurs. If he played the Mystic Shot onto the Tusk Speaker, we would only be attacking for 3 this turn, but since we went for the 1s, we got the additional damages in. We are a little more susceptible to the AoEs, though. Well, that feels good. I have a hard time believing he's got the AoEs if he's going to play Mystic Shots onto our Saboteurs. Okay. Alright, let's get the Virtuoso on board. If opponent wants to add a Jace this turn and just block Jhin, I'm pretty okay with it, but they don't have a ton of plays in this spot. So yeah, they can just attack into the Clockling, no problem now. Curious to see where his block goes, if he's going to be weakening Jhin, or if he's going to take down the Saboteur. Goes for the Jhin. You boomed him. But watch this. Watch this, my dude. He's about to come right back. This is a very important spot for Jhin as well. If opponent adds a unit to the board, and then we have the Lotus Trap as our next one, and the Lotus Trap with Jhin on board is going to be ready for a stun. And so if we can find a unit that doesn't have a skill attached to it, Annie was actually the perfect draw here. So now if opponent puts a dude on the board, we can add the Tusk Speaker and then get the stun directly onto that unit. This is a bit of a bummer, though. I'm going to go ahead and just drop the Nox and Fervor. We're going to get the extra point of damage out of the Lotus Trap. That's going to be gone now. Gets us these extra skills for Annie. And, there's always that opportunity for opponent to, play a removal spell and stop our thing from working. So, feels safe enough to just go ahead and drop it. I think we're getting enough value out of it as opposed to trying to surprise the opponent when they're only at 3 health. Annie's at 4.
Answers.
The donger comes in. Scary stuff. Not liking this. Not liking this. Need another good one. We are at least a little safe with the likes of Pirouette, but I'm not liking this game continuing on. If we don't win the game on this turn, it's gonna be a doozy. It's gonna be a tough one.
Have a part to play. Take one.
Let's play something big that doesn't matter, right? That's what we always ask for. Let's play something big that doesn't matter.
Embrace your fate as I have mine.
It's smaller than the diagram.
Remember the objectives.
All right, let's see where we can get. Not feeling good about this. Not feeling good.
Forgive me.
So what's our angle here? It's like, well, he played it anyways.
Invention to date.
Okay. Think we're done for in here. It's so odd in this deck with the augmented experimenters. Like, that's the actual perfect draw for us at this point, is picking up augmented experimenters, but it's so easy to clog your hand up with them in this one. Not a lot you can do about it.
I have a new method to evaluate.
But let's see if we can't refill into something big. Got this demolitionist now. The witness turning up. I think we want to keep passing. Make him put enough stuff on the board to be scary. So as it is, this isn't lethal. It's like he's got 9 damage on board. But right, we're hopeful, like, if on our next turn we can pick up a unit, say we pick up a Mana Soul, and then 2 turns from now, if we get another stunner, then we could potentially stun his whole board and then still get an attack in. Alright, we're dead now. That's close, though. I had high hopes with that, with the Jhins coming around. It drains so much removals out of them. It's unfortunate when they're able to have things like Piercing Darkness, because you're really hoping that they have to spend 2 or 3 cards to get him off of the board. He was set up there so nicely. It was going to be such a... Our draws came in so perfect in terms of hitting the Lotus Trap and getting the big stuns across the whole board, but it's not quite able to do it. All right. Good start here, though. Annie and the Saboteur. I'm going to lead off with the Saboteur. Do we? This is tough. I was going to say opponent doesn't have any ways to kill it on the first turn, but if we play a Saboteur and he has an Acorn, then I don't really want to be taking the trade this early. So we'll start in with Annie. It's not always clear, right? Annie does less damage than the Saboteur. You can see in these games how monumentally important every single point of damage can be. So I don't want to just assume that you play the highest power card, or you play the either the highest powered or the most damage. So all right, so with this, I'm going to lead off with the Tusk Speaker. I'm curious to see what opponent does for this turn. If they come in with a 3/3, then we could look to just pirouette it down. And then if they don't play any cards, we can just add the Legion Saboteur. So he goes Concussive Palm, so I'm going to play the Legion Saboteur. I just didn't want our Saboteur being in a spot to where it has to run into that 3/3.
Your attack is obvious. You cannot win.
All right, then our Jhin is at 1 on the Lotus Trap, so we need 2 skills before that juicy one comes down, that free stun before the combat happens. It's not the end of the world if you stun the unit in combat, because your dude will still get to survive after it gets blocked, but I definitely prefer to get the stuns before combat. Aftershock, interesting. So is this, what's this lead up to? Is this going to be a
Everything's in place.
this is going to be a caustic riff? I think we just have to swing. Our hand doesn't do anything with this, and so he can caustic riff. We'll play the Nox and Fervor, and then if he's got another burn spell, then that sucks. But he's already churned through a lot of them at this point.
Step into the spotlight. Everyone is waiting.
All right, abilities finish. Opponent falls to 3. We're getting real close. Getting real close. The Nox and Fervor. Yum, yum.
Fight, I can't win.
So how do we want to go about this? This is an interesting spot. Like, I would assume that if he didn't have the burn spell last turn, then he probably doesn't have it this turn either. But we can still take this a little bit slow. I don't really want to be rushing out on this one when we're... It's such an advantage with all these cards that we have. And so we can add Jhin to the board, stop Set from attacking. Next turn come in with the Stage Hand. The Stage Hand is going to activate Jhin, and so we'll get to deal a point of damage to face. It just... If opponent... It's like if we play the Nox and Fervor and he has the burn spell and then he gets to take over with Set, then we fall so far behind. Unfortunately, wasting a stun here, but not the end of the world.
Next acts will be sublime.
He just needs to attack now, right? So he says, look at all these damages I do, friends. Okay. You don't want to take that 4 bomb right to the nugget? Alright, we're good. GG.
I am frightened, but I am ready.
Embrace it. Your adoring public awaits.
So alright, I'm gonna take a little bit of a break after this game, see if we can play against someone that isn't Pepe Draco, play a different set of matches. But I think you can see where this lineup was trying to go, right? If you wanted to think of the way that we were talking about playing our lineup in the event, we were looking to where you're going to be playing against Samira, you're going to play against Tristana, and then there's going to be another set of decks. And so we were hoping to be banning Samira, playing against Tristana, being kind of coin flippy against Tristana, but then being good against Echo Jinx and Aatrox Vayne. There's another couple of decks or two that we were pretty well primed up against that were reasonable choices, but we knew going into it we were going to be weak against Karma Set. Karma Set was just good against our lineup of Nasus and Ornn. And so it is kind of interesting seeing these Karma Set games are just coming out and having really strong games up against it. We played it 6 times, won 5. The one that we lost was pretty close, and then still having reasonable success against Heimerdinger Jace. His Heimerdinger Jace did manage to get 3 wins against us, only losing once, but I feel like we heavily misplayed in one of those games as well. And that's a deck that's really tuned against what we're doing, in the sense that his version of Heimerdinger Jace was playing both the 3-cost Drain spell and the 6-cost Drain spell. Very strong cards against aggro decks, which aren't strong against a lot of the meta. And so being able to take a game off of that one actually felt pretty good. But again, I'm going to take a little break. We'll come back, see if we can't face off against somebody different. That was his second loss. I guess we did knock him out twice, so he's technically gone, but he'll do what it is anyways. All right. Hopefully it's been long enough. Pepe Dragon, I hope your next event goes better. That's what you get for playing triple aggro deck, or triple control lineups, though. Fuck that noise. Who wants to do that nonsense? This is boring. And when's the last time you had fun? It probably wasn't playing this game. Oof. Speaking of not having fun, I've been watching the NBA playoffs. I only watch them if LeBron James is involved, and I only watch the games involving LeBron James. And the matchups have been brutal. It's so brutal that the Lakers are just getting trounced by the Denver Nuggets, and it's tough to like 4-0 sweep somebody. It just Denver's just a better team. There's no two ways about it. Like last night's game was it was about the best situation that you could be in against Denver. Their star players got into foul trouble. They were sitting out large portions of the game, and the Lakers barely recovered. But then as soon as the star players came back in, they went on just like a 13-0 tear and took the game over. And it's like, I don't know, man. If you're not like able to super capitalize on those bad positions, then you're going to be out here struggling. And then it's also a sense that they just missed tons and tons of shots. It was wild. It's like these are professional athletes and just missing left and right. And so, it's tough. Feels bad. But nonetheless, coming back into these matchups, I'm fine enough to play all of our aggro decks into his brawler decks, the Samira Pantheon and the Alawi Jarvan. The one I'm looking to take out of the mix is his board control deck here in Aatrox Vayne. That's a deck that should be reasonably strong against both Samira Jinx and Annie Jhin. And so we'll just take that one away from opponent, leave the two brawlers up against our two aggros. See what's up. Start things off here with Samira Jinx. That's got to be tough, like in the spot of being LeBron James. It's just, I don't know how people still play at his caliber. Like he's certainly not as good as he was a decade ago, but it's like I wake up in the morning and like parts of my body just hurt. that's the end of the statement, you know. You wake up and things just hurt, and like being a professional athlete, just putting your body through abuse for literally since he was probably like 10 years old, so for almost 30 years of his life, shit just has to just hurt. And so you got to give him props where props are due. You young folks out there just saying, oh man, I'm young, I'm 19 years old, I party hard, I go and doing this and doing that and feel great the next day. Haven't had a 2-day hangover before. I don't know what you're talking about, Bust. It's tough. It gets hard, man. It gets hard out here for us old folks. And where this is going is like, I don't know with a person like LeBron, if you could ever just say like, I'm not the key player, I'm not the number one. Like I need the help, I need the assistance to really help us come in and push us over the edge, because I'm fucking old now. Like I just don't know if a professional athlete of his caliber could really find themselves in that kind of mindset. So just you're wired differently anyways if you're capable of getting to that level of professionalism to where your life is basketball. To then just switch it off and say, yeah, it's not that important anymore, or I'm okay not being the best in the world. It's tough. But at any rate, back to the battles here, away from the lands of basketball, up against the Samira Pantheon deck. Interesting spot. And so I kept this, slightly slower hand, given that we had the Mystic Shot to potentially take down the Samira if we needed to. He's added Saga Seeker, but not really done anything with it. And so I'm not too worried about it. The thing we have to worry about with Saga Seeker is this board feels like he's about to drop a Pale Cascade onto us. And that's not, like, terrible, but I don't really want our 2 attack units getting involved with the Saga Seeker. And so if we just come in and go ahead and add in the second Flame Chompers, it makes our hooks all good. It does give him the chance to say gem onto Cultist, but if he gems onto Cultist, that's his weaker unit. And if he gems onto Saga Seeker, we can try and kill it with Mystic Shot. He doesn't have the mana to play Pale Cascade anymore. And so curious how opponent chooses to go about it here. This way is kind of nice for us since neither of our Flame Chompers die in this combat. And now if he plays the post-combat gem onto Saga Seeker, we can still try and Mystic Shot it if we want to. Should be safe. Brings in the Pale Cascade. You got it, my dude. I will not be playing Mystic Shot onto your Saga Seeker. But a bit of an awkward space for us now. We don't have a ton of stuff to do. We gotta wait and really try and pop off with this augmented experimenter. Really just need to get that like last bit of damage into the face. The thing that worries me with this board is opponents getting wider and wider and wider, and we're not going to find that spot to where we can just punch in damage. And so we need to kind of be like visualizing that we might have to win this game with death rockets, because the game is going to be too full of units to deal damage with. So this might be our last combat to where we actually get to deal damage, right? Double Mystic Shot, though.
Watch your backs.
Alright, so let's send it like this. Assume he wants to block our pigeon with the Lunari Cultist. It's the stronger of the units that we have here. He goes for the smaller one. Okay, so now we should be able to just kill him with Mystic Shots. The way LeBron James would do it. Your boy from Akron, bringing the big damages right to the nugget. So wild seeing him run full speed and go and make a layup or a dunk. Number one, if you've never seen one of these people in person, like an NBA player or a professional football player or something, they're fucking massive. You can't you can't really piece together how gigantic these people are. Even when you have like the 6'6" basketball player standing next to like random announcer that's like, you know, normal height, like 5'8", 5'9" announcer. Like if you see someone in person the size of LeBron James, it is staggering just how fucking massive a 6'8", 260-pound piece of pure muscle is. It's huge. But like he doesn't do it as much as he does anymore now that he's old. But like he used to just like sprint like full speed down the court and then just go like make a layup or a dunk. And do you really want to fucking stand in front of that? Like if you want to take a charge and get the foul for your team, then more power to you. But like how many times do you really want to soak up that foul just getting fucking trounced by LeBron James? Like I'll take a pass. I'll take a pass on that happening. Ugh.
I'll show the hunters.
All right, this is an interesting spot, given that like I don't want to get into combat with this Blade Squire because it's just not a really positive combat for us. But we do have this fearsome unit along with 2 Crackshot Corsairs, and so I'm kind of envisioning us being able to punch in for a bunch of damage here, even if it's not with our higher valued units like the Saboteur and the Pigeon. And so I am kind of okay with trading Crackshot Corsair with a Blade Squire. If opponent starts adding more units to the board this turn, then things kind of change a little bit. But this attack here is still good. We'll get 2 into the face. If he wants to trade, great. We soaked up a lot of his mana right now, right? We traded 1 mana for 3 mana spent, which is a pretty big deal when we're just going to come in and flood out the board. Like, if he gets into this play where he's going to say, like, I'm going to play a 3-drop, and then I'm going to put an equipment on it, and we say, cool, here's a stun. You know? That's just exactly what we're trying to run into.
Oh dear.
So, dude has Fearsome. We can't block. If we could trade for a 4-2 here, I would happily do so, but it's a little bit too small. Now everybody's coming to the party. If he wants to block a Crackshot Corsair with his big boy and take all this damage, I'm happy enough with that. Is Mana Soul worth an add? I'm a little worried about Mana Soul. It's like a very good turn for opponent to play just like literally any unit. If he plays a 2-3 Dragon or if he plays a Pantheon this turn, it's not super ideal. So I'm going to put the Crimson Pigeon down here to the right, not supporting anything. It's just too easy for it to come in and die. This is not terrible. He doesn't get to kill our Saboteur this way. It is a spot to where we could look to Nox and Fervor. But I kind of like the idea of hanging on to Nox and Fervor for if we get into a spot to where he's got a lifesteal unit. This feels like we're getting pretty far ahead, and the only way that we're going to lose this game is if he makes some kind of weird play with a lifesteal unit. So if we can protect from that, I'd be happy with it, but might just be playing the Nox and Fervor here. How does that look? He's going to say, like, equip a Saga Seeker, and then we just Nox and Fervor? I don't... It's tough. I don't want to just discard it next turn. Maybe that's okay, though. See if he attacks. He attacks and we can block and then throw something away. Maybe that's okay? Or would we even rather just Nox and Fervor the Saga Seeker right now when he doesn't have any spells to boost it? I think I'm okay with that. Now it's like I'm thinking more is like, do we want to put damage onto the Lunari Cultist so that we can kill it with an Augmented Experimenter? I don't think we want to go that far.
That's so cool.
He should be a good follow-up next turn. So it's like we'll open attack. We're going to deal 8 damage. Assuming he doesn't have anything, right? 2 from Crack Shot, 4 from Crack Shot, 3 more from Saboteur gets it to 7, 8 with the Mana Soul. And then we can just follow up the Experimenter onto the Cultist. Opponent says, that's too much, Bust. You boomed me too good. You talked about LeBron too hard. GG. On to the next one. That was 3 wins, right? We're not on 2, we're on 3. That was 3. Good job. Next battle. So I've been running into some more kitty problems. So in this house, it's a 3-level house. It's not like a 3-story house. Don't act like I'm some kind of richo. It's just the way they make all the houses out here in the Midwest are all split levels, and so it technically has the 3 levels to it, but it's just the way that they design everything out here. But we set it up to where we put the litter boxes in the basement, and so I cut a hole into a wall, and then on the other side of that hole is a kitty tree. And so when the cats need to shit, they can now go down a flight of stairs through this hole in the wall, down the kitty tree, and go to the shit box. It was a way to keep them from having to go through the garage, right? I do not want the cats in the garage. That's just the easiest way for cats to run out of the house. I would freak out if my kitties ran away. And so that was the solution. That keeps the turd boxes out of the main areas of the house, but they have to go through that little hole. And so the Void, the all black kitty that shows up on occasion, he's a bit of a turd. I like to describe him as that friend you have that if you're at a party, he thinks it's like funny to punch you in the balls, and then you wonder why you ever hang out with them. But then like some point down the road, you have a flat tire on the side of the road. You call like 5 or 6 friends and nobody answers, and then you call your little Void friend that just punches people in the balls at parties, and they're like, fuck yeah, be there in a heartbeat. You know, it's like that's the kind of person that they are. That's the way this cat is. And so he's kind of taken to this move to where he sits on the other side of that little opening, and then as the cats come down the stairs, he just kind of like jumps at him and chases at him. He thinks it's fucking hilarious. And so that's resulted in some of the cats not wanting to pee in the basement. They started peeing on other stuff. And so I had to go and get one of those automatic shit boxes that we're going to try and keep on the main level. We'll see how it goes. It has like the crystals and stuff in it. I haven't been impressed by that before, but that's what it takes to make the kitties happy. And that's what we'll be doing. And so back into the lineups here, very similar to what we talked about before. We're going to leave the Samira deck up. I'm okay to play against the Samira Jinx mirror match. We would prefer it to be the Fizz version, but whatever. We're going to be banning out Tristana. Tristana just has a lot of those same go wide elements that we would get out of, say, a Nora deck, to where we just can't play things like Annie-Gen into a go wide strategy. And so we'll let that one go, and then hopefully we'll be able to pick on the Kai'Sa deck just a little bit. All right. the mirror match. Let's see how this goes. Not a great start. Going to get rid of everything and look for some real one drops. This is a lot about having board control and just having a more explosive draw than your opponent does. And while the Reborn Grenadiers do have a bit of explosiveness to them, it's not a permanent solution. And so you really want them to be a part of like an explosive turn 4 or turn 5 after you just discard a bunch of stuff. Not something you really want on the first turn of the game, especially if you're not on the proper attack token. But interesting addition with Samira. I'm not usually excited about running Samira out directly into these boards, right? This is this spot to where we could next turn now generate, like we'll get this mana back off of our Forge Chief, and then we could look to use Samira to get a little bit of board control. But I'm not amped about it. I think we're still going to go for it here. It gives us a lot of control, but especially if opponent doesn't have their own Samira. Alright, Scrap Scuttler. Coming for you. No Mystic Shot, that's cool. So if he has a Samira of his own, it kind of sucks, but if he doesn't have her, then we should just be leagues and leagues ahead. I think we're good here to leave the Reborn Grenadier for the offensive. We'll look to play him next turn. It's a very quick spot to be, say, putting Pigeon down this turn and the next turn playing Grenadier, discarding Vision. Gives us a lot of power, a lot of good hooks. Dig it. So it's like, I would think from opponent's perspective this turn, they're going to try and make the bird a 3/3. Like, it's going to be good, then you get to hook somebody out of combat with the Flame Chompers. Yeah, this is all fine. And then so now we're taking a chunk of damage, but we can look to a quick attack challenge down the Pigeon next turn. And his board is going to be a lot worse than ours. We'll see. Samira, again, not really in a place to flip. Very dangerous to be just dropping Jinxes. Opponent has a lot of cards in hand here as well, and so don't think they'll be getting Jinx going in any of these turns too quickly. We can look to drop ours turn from now. Alright, here comes the crew. Many strengths coming in. Getting an extra token while we're at it. We're not going to be flipping the Samira. That's what I would say. I mean, even if we draw like a cycle card next turn, that makes it a little bit closer, but I wouldn't count on it. So he's got his Jinx. It should be pretty tough for him to... it should be pretty tough for him to flipper this turn. I'm going to play our other Jury Rig. I'm not quite willing to take all the damage at this point. If this devolves into something to where we're both trying to... both just trying to get into the Death Rocket game, I want to make sure we have a little bit of buffer because we don't have a ton of interactivity in these decks. A little scary. So he can, if he has like a Rummage, he can look to get his Jinx flipped, but we can ideally take her down. So we've got the mana for all this. We'll give Samira the Flare. We'll put the Augmented Experimenter onto Jinx, and now we'll just have to see what happens. If he has a flip with the Jinx, we can take her down with our Samira, and then otherwise, he's just adding in new units. We should feel pretty strong on this turn. This is most certainly okay.
Immerse yourself in the unknown.
Didn't have any discards off of that either.
I've work to do. Stay away from that switch.
Interesting. So we had to have just drawn Jinx, right? Like, why would you just put the damage sink onto Crimson Pigeon if you aren't about to drop a Jinx on the board? Like, that's all that really makes sense to me there. But is he gonna really have the mana to play a Jinx? And then I guess if he picked up like Jinx and Rummage, then it doesn't sound too obnoxious in terms of being able to get a flip.
Anything helps.
Let's see. I don't want to just like we're picking up all of these 1 health units. Oh my gosh, he's gonna do it, isn't he? We have to stop here. We're gonna get Death Rocketed this turn. Oh my gosh. Yep.
We are doing it.
Oh man, that is just brutal.
You know it's here somewhere.
He brings in the Death Rocket, sure thing. Gotta see if we can't get wider than this now. It's a pretty big ask. We have a lot of cycle in hand, so we might pick up some nice fresh cards, but
Screaming helps not at all.
so the question we're gonna have to ask ourselves here is, can we ever win this game like with 2 attacks? And I don't think we do, so I think we just go ahead and take the Jinx damage here. I'm gonna add Sump Dredger to the board just to have the bigger play, and then we're gonna have to try and just attack around this and win next turn, which is exceptionally tough to do as they're generating Death Rockets. I was waiting on the remainder of my card draws to come in, and they didn't.
My experiments.
Let's see if he blocks with Jinx. Might be able to get her off of the board and then have a little bit more time. But this is definitely bad news. So opponent has... Oh, of course.
Dance Jinx?
Of course. Why not? Why not?
The sun got me good. There's a blast.
Okay. On to the next one. See, that's one of the things that really surprises me. And so one of the things that I say about best of 3 when it comes to selecting our decks and everything is there's a lot of mirror matches that I just don't want to play. And a lot of those mirror matches are things like Samira Fizz and Samira Fizz and Samira Jinx. Like they're very volatile mirror matches, and it's just not something that I feel like if you're playing in a 9 to 10 round event, that you're just going to lose a lot of those matches just based on kind of games like that. It's just to where you're building up these kind of big insurmountable advantages, and it turns out they aren't insurmountable because your opponent just top decks much, much harder than you were able to do. And
Let's make tomorrow
it's interesting because, like, if you look at, say, someone like Drissoth, it's, you know, I think that he would have been more than happy to just play mirror matches all day. He's just better than everybody else in NA. And that's what he did. He brought that Samira Fizz Tristana plus Karma Set lineup, and then just smoked every mirror match all across the course of the day. And excuse me, and it just it strikes me as like I could see him being okay with that in the sense of like playing Karma Set mirrors all day, but like having to play Samira Fizz mirrors just it strikes me as you're gonna lose a lot of games just because you get hit with a nut draw and then you didn't hit it. And so it's very, very interesting to me that he kind of went through that space. But here, nonetheless, this is an interesting spot. I don't really want to give up on our vision, but I'm not nearly as willing to just give up on our Jinxes. So maybe we should just be throwing Jinx away at this point, but it's so early in the game for her that I'm not excited about tossing her away just yet. See if we can get some big cycle for this turn. Nothing turning up. But we can get an Urchin, another Urchin into a Jury Rig. See if anything comes out of the Jury Rig cycle. Another Vision. It's not bad. Still get reasonable attacks. All right. Drop him to 17. We're going to be counting on you, Jinx. You're going to have to do a lot of work this game.
A mistake is the first step to improving.
If we pass, I wonder if he passes. Like, I'm kind of okay with it. I don't think they're going to come in and just pass. Now we can add our Jinx to the board.
Stand for Jinx? Brr.
So we need to play the Pigeon. That will let us get the flip if we want. Curious to see how much mana they spend at this point, or if they're going to try and target down our Jinx. The flip here is reasonably strong. Form up into Cataclysm. That's a very, very heavy way to go about this. I'm fine with it. The question here is going to be, like, I kind of want to flip, but like, but we're just gonna have, like, if we're flipping, we're gonna have to just get excited this anyways, right? But at any rate, we'll take the Broadwing down to 1 health. Shouldn't be strong enough to get the kill. Now it's going to fall to 3 health, and we have to take the flip at this point.
You to the counter.
But he just blew his wad here, so I think we should be pretty okay after this. Right, we got our 1 health Jinx. Opponent only has 2 cards in hand. Not a horrible spot to be in.
Come on, fish tones. I don't wanna.
I don't wanna.
Hello?
Opponent says that's too much, Bust. You weren't supposed to win that combat. And see, that was kind of an interesting thing. We could have looked to... It was tough. If we wanted to just, like, let the Jinx fall in combat and just play the second copy, we would have had an option with it there. But... not entirely certain. All right, look at that aggro start. See if we can't get out in front of these little evolve units.
I have my order.
So start with the Saboteur. I mean, it's the most damage. If he doesn't have any ones, then we get to slam in with it. It's the problem if he does have a unit, though, right? He could have played the Pigeon and had it survive the combat. He's most certainly taking the trade here. But it's like another one of these spots where this matchup isn't spectacular if they have a big board control draw. And so I like to be able to take those units away if we can.
Explosives primed.
See if this one gets into combat. We have the Pirouette, but Pirouette can't pop the spell shield on this thing. And next turn we can look to both Pirouette and Tusk Speaker, if that's how things are going to play out.
When my song ends, men die.
Get them big damages in. Interesting. I mean, I think we're stuck. I was hoping to get a little bit better than this, but... like, I guess if this gets the +2/+2 card out of the opponent, it's not terrible. And then the new question is, do we still attack into this thing, now that it only has limited health? I think we're kind of stuck. Like, we're not going to have good combats a couple turns from now, so let's just go ahead and come in and take the trade. these spots worry me in the sense that opponent's going to have bigger cards than us, and so our hand isn't, like, we haven't built up any width, and our hand isn't really designed to like come out here and deal with these trades. I feel like we've probably just been overly aggressive in this game. This feels like one that we've played wrong at every single turn. Like, I feel like on turn 1 we should have played the pigeon, and then just built up the board from there. And then we could have found ourselves in a spot here to where we're able to, say, stun the combat cook and then get a kill on a smaller play. But
Let's go make some friends, Tibbers.
maybe we've just top decked well enough to make it work out.
For me, the spirit dance.
You can do this. You're a Durand.
So where do we stand with this? Again, it's like it's such a pain point with this pirouette where we're not actually able to kill anything. And now all these attacks just suck so much ass. And I think we're still stuck bringing in the units. Maybe we can get like enough clears post combat, but this one's all on me. It's not to say that we would have been able to beat this draw, but we've played this game poorly. Just like when you get into spots like this, you should be able to, shoot down one unit, stun another unit, and still have like 4 units on the board. And we've just never allowed ourselves to set that up. Alright, that one's on me. That's too bad. Again, like, it's not the greatest matchup in the world, but we approached that completely wrong. You need to be in that spot to where... again, it's like as we described the difference between playing a deck like Annie, Jhin, and Pirates, you feel like they should be very similar given that they play a lot of the same units. They're all playing Crimson Pigeon and Legion Saboteur and a lot of these early game 1-drops, but the way that the games kind of finish is when you're playing with Pirates, you play a bunch of card draw and value generation, and so you flood out the board. You maybe get an extra unit with Mirai Warden, you play a Zap Sprayfin, that draws a card, you play an Eye of Nagakaboros, that draws you 2 cards, and so as the game kind of progresses, you're just refilling the board with all of this stuff. But Annie Jhin doesn't play like that. Annie Jhin plays out in this kind of manner as to where you're getting this really wide board, you're taking these early aggressive attacks where you can, but on that, say, like last turn there, that last turn where we made an attack, you're looking to, say, play a stun bird into a pirouette and then use the pirouette to maybe deal a point of damage to a unit that gets a kill. And so you aren't removing the big units from the board, but you're getting a stun into a kill, and then you attack with everything and you get to punch in a bunch of damage. And we played that game like we were playing Pirates, right? We didn't play that game like we were playing Annie Jhin. We should have just right from the start said, okay, on turn 1 I'm playing my 2/2. Because if you play a 1/1 and we trade, this is bad. And so I don't want to deal the most damage. I just want to play the unit that can survive. And then as we get into turn 2, opponent plays Bethel the Elder. That's fine. We play 2 units. We can trade with the Elder because the spell shield is annoying. But then as we roll into turn 3, now we're into this spot to where we can play a Tusk Speaker. The Tusk Speaker deals the point of damage to the opponent. The opponent plays a unit, doesn't matter what it is. Then we play our pirouette. We deal 1 to the Voidling and get the kill on it. We get the stun on the opponent's big unit. Now we're able to attack with 3 units. The opponent has no blocks. Our Crimson Pigeon gets to grow. And then as we move into this next cycle of attacking, we get to do the same thing. And so if opponent wants to try and make an attack on their turn 4, they can. Maybe we take that unit down to 1 health. Our turn rolls around. We play a card. We play a pirouette. We kill the unit. We get a stun. Like, if you listen to how like that second one sequenced off, that's just like way better than everything that we did. But I played it like we were playing Pirates, and that was just completely the wrong way to go. And so that's tough. We didn't take down victory, but we learned a little bit along the way. Just one of those things. I've explained this with Annie Jhin in the sense that it's one of those decks that I never really gave any credit. And as we come in and play it, I can see like more and more and more where all these just like big misplays are happening. And I think for a long time, I really had it in my head that Annie Jhin was just like a different flavor of Pirates, and it's not. And so it was one of those things where it was like always very easy to kind of see like the aggro draws where you just get blown out, right? You have a draw where they play like on the first 3 turns they play 6 mana of units. You don't play enough units and they just kill you, whatever. And then you have these games to where you're just like, oh, if they don't have a stun, then this game is easily mine. But then they always had the stun, and it just felt like they were so lucky. Like it's taken me a while to kind of like formulate that Jhin is actually just one of the toughest aggro decks to play. And we've been playing poorly with it and against it for a long time. And so I feel like with this upcoming Eternal season, I'm going to devote a lot of time to Jhin. And I feel like our fortunes with it are going to change quite a bit more. But nonetheless, good set of games, good set of matches. Not fully victorious here in the Ruthless Rumble, but I think there was a lot of learning to be had, a lot of good times had as well. And that's going to do it for us today. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way. Had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.